Welcome, adventurers. Today on Rebel Then King, I am continuing to build out adventuring parties using only one class. This time with one that I joke about a lot because it's going to be kind of ridiculous and frankly is going to be almost overpowered, the champion. As a reminder, I want to do this without using the field medic background, without cheesing human abilities like extra class feats and general training, without overly indexing or cheesing other ancestry abilities, and I just kind of want to get the most out of the class itself. I'm very glad that I waited to do this until the remaster came out because it's going to help the champion out quite a lot. Hey adventurers, I bet you don't want to hear me talking about liking, commenting, and subscribing, but I bet you do want to hear me talking about knife throwing. This channel is approaching 2 years old, and I'm going to celebrate here on YouTube with a knife throwing tutorial and analysis video that might look a little bit like this. I am also going to celebrate over on twitch.tv/RebelThenKing with a debut stream on March 27th. I'm going to look back at my channel over the last couple of years, at Pathfinder over the last couple of years, and hopefully that will be the start of a lot of behind the scenes and sort of variety content. So again, subscribe here on YouTube for knife throwing and follow me over on Twitch for that debut stream. Let's start where I always start. Not quite with the hammer this time though, the tank. This is more of a tank champion. Champions don't truly hammer all that well. They are martial characters. They can be strength-based, so they can hit hard, but they don't have a lot of extra abilities on top of just regular strikes, so they're not ever going to be a true hammer, but this still hits well and is going to be quite defensive. So I have a dwarf barkeep champion here. They are the Death Warden dwarf with dwarven doughtiness. Just lots of survivability built right in from the ancestry there. For the class feat, I went with Everstand Stance. They are holy, and they are of the liberation cause. We're going to take a look at each of the causes as we go along here. The reaction here is Liberating Step. An enemy damages, grabs, or restrains your ally, and both are in your champion's aura. You free an ally from restraint. If the trigger was an ally taking damage, the ally gains resistance to all damage against the triggering damage equal to 2 plus your level. The ally can attempt to break free of effects grabbing, restraining, immobilizing, or paralyzing them. So a very good way to help out your allies, damage reduction, and get them out of that grabbed condition, which is pretty awful to have. It's not my favorite of the reactions, but they're all good, so it's going to be fine. I do love the new focus spell, though, that was introduced in the remaster. Shields of the Spirits. You raise your shield, causing ephemeral spirits to float within your champion's aura. The shields last until the start of your next turn, or until you're no longer raising your shield, whichever comes first. While one of your allies is in your champion's aura, the shield grants them a +1 status bonus to their AC, and each time an enemy makes an attack against that ally makes an attack, not damages, makes an attack, the enemy takes 1d4 spirit damage, even if it misses. The benefit applies only to the ally in your aura. So, okay. Great defensive buffing option, plus the ability to do some damage to a creature that goes ahead and makes the attack anyway, like just sitting back and taking, or you are just dealing passive damage. It's so cool. And it just, the imagery that I have for that one, I feel like is just amazing. Things to note here is, of course, you want a good shield to use with Everstand Stance. I did arm this with a Warhammer. That's going to be a D8 +4. Remember, we need a one-handed weapon here because we want to use our shield. For the defense, you're going to see this a lot here. I went with a breastplate. This is good, but remember, you can upgrade your armor later. It is hard to get, or maybe even impossible, to get full heavy armor, full plate at level 1 because it is too expensive. Doesn't affect this build because it does have some dexterity, but you'll see with some of the other builds where that comes into play. So yeah, this is just going to be a tough, decent damage dealer who also does a little bit of protection on their allies, which you're going to see here because these are all champions and they all have reactions that protect their allies. You kind of want to fight in a cluster here, and just imagine, I mean, 3 or 4 attacks or hits coming in from the enemies all are going to be subject to your champion's reactions every single turn. You are going to mitigate so much damage with this party. It is going to be so ridiculous. We'll just keep going in order here. This is what I'm calling my full human, full healing champion. It is a human. That's why I said that. It's a curandero. It is a champion. It is the, how do you say that? Ayuveran. There we go. The Ancestry Feat, Wildborn Magic. We want a little bit of magic, additional abilities. We went with Deity's Domain. We are going to be a little bit more of the spell casting champion here. We also went with the Grandeur Cause. Let's take a look at that reaction. Also a new one, also so cool. An enemy damages your ally, and both are within your champion's aura. The effect is Imperious Divine Light flashes out from you to surround your foe. The ally gains resistance to all damage against the triggering damage equal to 2 plus your level. Pretty standard. For 1 round, the attacker is affected by Revealing Light. Just insane. It is such a good reaction to have. And it plays into this character being sort of the divine healer of the party. That is also why we went with Lay on Hands as the focus spell. And other things to talk about here. Let's keep going on spells for a second. Due to this Wildborn magic, I did pick up Rousing Splash as well, granting some temporary hit points to your allies. This is the healing build after all, so that is going to help out there. Some other things to note is that, I did arm this. I went with a harpoon and not a trident for a ranged build here. Rousing Splash is just amazing. It is a dexterity-based build, so this does not run into the needing to upgrade armor later on problem. You can afford light armor early on, so you go with it. And then just overall, this Grandeur Cause plus Lay on Hands plus some water spells, Rousing Splash. I forgot to mention, I also have, due to the water domain from Deity's Domain, we have Tidal Surge. You call forth a tremendous wave to move the target either in a body of water or on the ground. You can move the target up 10 feet in any direction. So it's a little protection and battlefield control there as well. Divine, holy, cleansing, just a fun build. Now we're moving on to the buffing plus some healing protector champion. This is a Minotaur. It's a wandering preacher, and it is the roaming Minotaur heritage, which I think just works so perfectly. Like, that's some synergy right there. The Ancestry Feat is Pantheon Magic. We're leaning more into magic. Class feat, Desperate Prayer. Basically get a free focus point. So again, this is somewhat of a magical build, which is what I'm doing with the more the healing and buffing kind of champions here. This is a Redemption Cause champion. The Glimpse of Redemption reaction. An enemy damages your ally and both are in your champion's aura. Your enemy hesitates under the weight of sin as versions of redemption play in the mind's eye. The enemy must choose to repent or refuse with the following effects. If the enemy is mindless or otherwise unable to repent, use the refuse result. Repent is the ally is unharmed by the triggering damage. Refuse, the ally still gains resistance to all damage against the triggering damage equal to 2 plus your level, so still good. After the damage effect is applied, the enemy becomes enfeebled 2 until the end of its next turn. So some great debuffs in addition to the protection built in there. We're also going with Lay on Hands for more healing abilities. So we have, in this party of 4, we have 2 party members who can use Lay on Hands for just automatic 1 action, though touch range healing. We've got that Rousing Splash for some temporary hit points. This is armed with a greatsword. Again, we've got the breastplate here, which you could probably upgrade later. Oh, and then I also forgot that we do have an innate spell of guidance from our Pantheon magic. So this is a good bard-like ability to provide someone some guidance and give them a +1 bonus to their next attack roll, perception check, saving throw, or skill check. So not bad. This is kind of your party buff. You know, a little tiny bard-like, but with better automatic healing, and then more focused on protection than on rallying your attacks, but still rallying your attacks a little bit. Now we move on to the Debuffing Champion, which is a Hobgoblin Emissary. It's not a very nice emissary, but it is an emissary. Steelskin, Remorseless Lash, we'll talk about that. Class feat is Iron Repercussions, which we'll talk about. And it is the Obedience Cause. The reaction here is you put an impertinent foe who dared harm you in the proper place. You command your enemy to kneel before you in obedience. If they dare refuse, they must pay the price in pain and anguish. The enemy must choose one of the following options. Kneel, they drop prone. Ridiculous. Or refuse, you deal 1d6 mental damage to the enemy. Awesome. It's a cruel one, but I love it. Let's see. The spell we're going with here, the focus spell, is Touch of the Void. We haven't selected this one yet. You target one willing undead creature or one living creature. If it is a living creature, the target takes 1d6 void damage with a basic fortitude save, and on failure, the target also takes a -2 status penalty to AC for a round. So this is a great way to soften up an enemy for your allies. This has the War Flail, because hobgoblins. Defense is using a breastplate. You do want to upgrade to full plate armor. I have no dexterity on this build, so you want to boost that AC later. Let's talk about Remorseless Lash for a second here. Okay, so Remorseless Lash, Obedience Cause, and Iron Repercussions is just like this strong-handed character, right? We've got a +2 to our charisma to demoralize and make use of Remorseless Lash. You're skilled at beating an enemy when their morale is already breaking. When you succeed at a melee weapon strike against a frightened enemy, that enemy can't reduce their frightened condition below 1 until the beginning of your next turn. So that is ridiculous. What you can do is maybe use Touch of the Void to drop someone's AC and damage them. You can then demoralize them to drop their AC even more with the frightening condition. And then you can hit them, and then they won't be able to shake off that frightened condition. Brutal debuffing game is available to you with this build. Now, this one can't protect its allies. Its reaction is only when you are attacked. But, I mean, this is going to be kind of the aggro character out there, just being cruel and in the front line and drawing attention to itself. So I think it'll work out well. And on that note, let's talk about what this party does well and what it doesn't do well. So what it does well. You have damage and healing covered. I'm going to say damage and healing / damage mitigation covered. Basically, you're going to hurt enemies and you're probably going to be fine. You aren't going to take all of the damage that is coming your way because you're going to use those reactions over and over and over. And then you have 2 characters with lay on hands. You have these abilities that weaken enemy attacks. You have abilities that boost your armor class. So you are going to excel defensively in combat, and you're still going to do decent damage. You don't have a bunch of offensive boosts like you might have with other martial classes, but you are still a full martial proficiency class. You've got some range damage. You have one ranged character. I'll add that. Lots of melee, one range. Perfect. You know, that's what you want. Let me just say it again. Reactions, reactions, reactions. Why I like reactions so much, especially reliable ones that you will get to use often, is it's an extra action, right? If you could use an action on your turn to say, I'm automatically going to reduce any damage I might take, you would probably do so, right? Well, with these builds, you get to do your 3 actions, and then you basically, you know that someone in your party or yourself is going to be attacked and probably will take damage. It happens almost every single round in Pathfinder. So you know that these reactions are going to get used over and over and over. And basically, between your 4 characters who normally, you know, if these were druids, let's say, who don't, well, maybe, okay, bad example, druids have shield block. If these were alchemists, let's say, who I can't really think of many alchemy-based reactions, that's essentially 12 actions. That's it per turn. This is going to trend closer to 14, 15, maybe even basically 16 activities, I guess I should say, that they can do in each round because they are using those reactions over and over. And I didn't even go with like Retributive Strike here, which is multiple actions in one. But I mean, some of them are like Liberating Step is damage reduction. I consider that to be an action. And the ally can then try to escape, or can step, if I remember. So that is, I mean, that's basically 2 actions as a reaction. That character is kind of taking 5 actions in a round. Amazing. What this doesn't do well, it doesn't do huge damage. I think you're going to do fine, but if you encounter something with a hardness, perhaps, or strong resistance, you might struggle a little bit because you don't have that character that is going to reliably do 12 points of damage and get through that. You might do your D8 plus 4 and have a low roll, and due to the resistance, you don't actually do any damage with that. That's possible with this party. Another bad thing is you're not well-rounded in skills. It's not terrible. You know, if we go, I didn't fill out all of the skill training here. I should have. Sorry about that. But, you know, this character has charisma because we wanted it to be good at intimidation, which, you know, I'll at least go and mark that there. There we go. So you've got some ambassador abilities. This is a wisdom-based character, the full healer. So it does have pretty decent nature and medicine. Oh my gosh, it's not trained in medicine. That's right. This one was the full healer. I have 2 high wisdom builds. And then, you know, you've got some, you can lean into athletics at least with this one. So we're not doing super well in our, although, you know, maybe I have to eat my own words on this because I forgot I do have this decent dexterity-based character, which gives me the thievery, right, and stealth pretty decently. So it is well-rounded. It's not super well-rounded, I'll say. I think the dash goes there. You know, compared to a party that has a couple of an intelligence-based classes or has an investigator, which I know is intelligence-based, but, you know, it could be a little bit better. You don't have a rogue in here, for example, but now that I look back through it, it's actually doing better than I realized. Overall, I think this would be a ridiculously fun party. I think it would be quite effective. It's not going to be a party that has big ups and downs like some, where you are taking a beating, but then you have a huge, you know, confident finisher or something like that. You don't have huge damage output bursts, but strong, reliable damage, and then you will just reduce incoming damage and be able to heal yourselves so well in combat. I seriously think this might be one of the, at least combat-wise, one of the strongest options you possibly have for using only one class to build an adventuring party. Let me know what you think. I know there are going to be some other higher DPS classes out there, but as far as being well-rounded and having that super fun tank ability, this is an amazing set of characters using only one class to build out your party. See you next time, adventurers.